I'm going to discuss what I consider to be a fascinating chapter in American history. It is what has become known as the Satanism Scare, or Satanic Panic. During the 1980s and early 90s, there were rumors of a national or international network of underground Satan worshippers who performed bizarre rituals that included torture, sexual abuse, and even sacrifice of people, mostly children. Many members of law enforcement and the media took these rumors seriously to the point that people were incarcerated, blackballed, and harassed based on nothing more than a collective paranoid fantasy. In this video series, I will be discussing the history of the satanic underground rumor mill and the impact that it had on our society at the time. This includes some analysis as to how these strange witch hunt type events could have occurred so recently. And in the description of this video, there are links to good articles on the subject for those who are interested in learning more about it. When I mention an article that I have provided a link for, I will indicate that by showing a picture of Abraham Lincoln. Okay, so you're not rolling on the floor, but kind of cute, eh? I will start back in 1973 with the publication of a book called The Satan Seller by Mike Warnke. This book was claimed to be an autobiographical account of the author's involvement with a satanic cult in 1966. Warnke claimed that he became the high priest of this cult before giving his life to Jesus while serving in Vietnam. The popularity of this book launched a ministry for Warnke as well as a career as a Christian comedian. In 1992, Mike Warnke and John Trott of Cornerstone magazine, a Christian publication, exposed Warnke as a fraud. The entire account of his involvement with the satanic cult were all fabrications. Prior to the Cornerstone article, the events described in the Satan Seller were considered to be true by a portion of the evangelical Christian community and even some people outside that community. According to the Cornerstone article, a generation of Christians learned its basic concepts of Satanism and the occult from Mike Warnke's testimony in the Satan Seller. Based on his alleged satanic experiences, Warnke came to be recognized as a prominent authority on the occult, even advising law enforcement officers investigating occult crime. We believe the Satan Seller has been responsible more than any other single volume in the Christian market for promoting the current nationwide Satanism scare. End quote. This may be true, as in, The Satan Seller was the first book to suggest that there is such a thing as a national satanic conspiracy. Warnke claimed that his cult had 1,500 members in 3 cities. His involvement with this group is said to have started with his enrollment at the 2-year college San Bernardino Valley College in California in 1965. Here is where he started drinking heavily, then turned to drugs. He grew his hair down to his waist. He volunteered for LSD experiments at the college. He became a major drug dealer and was shot a few times. And then he joined what he called a coven. Mike Warnke and John Trott investigated the claims by contacting people who knew Warnke. It was revealed that all of these outlandish tales were, of course, false. The Satan Seller was marketed to evangelical Christians. It was a bestseller in that community. The evangelicals are a gullible lot. Outside that community, there are very few people who would find the book believable. But the Satan Seller did lay the groundwork for the Satanic Panic yet to come. Even 17 years after Cornerstone revealed that the book is a bunch of hooey, there are people who are still insisting that it is true. One of them is Mike Warnke himself. The book is still available. One can order it from Amazon. It is published by Logos Associates and retails for $29.99. The Amazon customer reviews demonstrate how there are people who still believe Warnke. One review reads, "Wow, I can't believe the difference in reviews. You can definitely tell who the Christians are and who are not. If you want the knowledge of what it is like to have your child messed up with cults or Satanism, you need to read this book. There is no fantasy. People seem to want to call it fantasy, but it is not. This is the real forces of the world. As it is said in the Bible, Satan is the prince of the world, and this is a sample of his work. Reference, John 12:31. I highly recommend this book to those who want a glimpse of what Satan can and does to the young and old. Although it is disturbing reading, I would suggest you reading it first before your teenager does. I think maybe people want to call it a fantasy because it is too much to handle, and it is a lot to come to terms with. Sometimes the truth is hardest to face up to." End quote. Mike Herdenstein and John Trott have since written a full-length book on the subject of Mike Warnke and called Selling Satan. This is also available at Amazon for $14.35. The reviews of this book reveal some of the hostility that Warnke loyalists have toward the authors who exposed the fraud. One review reads, "Having grown up in the Warnke era, I was fascinated by this book. However, having recently met Mr. Warnke in person and having a one-on-one discussion with him, I feel that this book is just another anti-religion propaganda work of the liberal left. The media hates people of any religious inclination and will stop at nothing to destroy them, come what may. Americans are daily brainwashed by the Hollywood media and their cavalcade of overzealous left-wing promoters. Give me a break. Most Americans do not agree with the Hollywood way of life, yet our politicians, most especially those who are Democrats, bow down to the god of Hollywood and try and cram their beliefs down the throats of all Americans. Take a Valium. This is worthless drivel below anyone beyond a second-grade education and certainly beyond those of us who actually graduate from college. Mike Warnke was waylaid by the liberal left. He is a man of integrity, and this expose is nothing more than communist Nazi propaganda." End quote. I might add that Cornerstone magazine is put out by the Jesus People Church. This is a much more liberal brand of Christianity. They are descendants of the Jesus freaks from the 1960s. The folks who wanted to be groovy hippies, but they did not want to abandon their religion that they were raised with. So they combined the two. They even published their own version of the Bible in which Jesus says things like, "Hey man, that's not too cool." The people who believe in the Satan seller are those who believe in the literal existence of the devil. They tend toward paranoid fantasy, apocalyptic fantasy, delusions of persecution, the Antichrist, etc. It is a fairly isolated group of people. They often avoid mainstream society as much as possible because they are afraid of being poisoned by secular culture. They are prone to conspiracy theories, so it is not that much of a stretch for them to envision a widespread interconnected satanic cult that operates just under the radar. So how did the beliefs of this fringe culture spill over into mainstream society to the extent that it did? The answer to that question starts with the publication of a book called Michelle Remembers in 1980. This book is about a young woman who had repressed memories resurface through hypnosis by her therapist. That very therapist, Lawrence Pazder, co-wrote the book with Michelle Smith. Between 1973 and 1980, there were several other accounts by alleged ex-Satanists from authors such as John Todd and Herschel Smith. But these did not have nearly the impact that Michelle Remembers did. Okay, it's now time to go to part 2.